Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Anneliese Kuemmerle, and I am the Program Associate for Rutgers Cooperative Extension of Cape May County's Department of Family and Community Health Sciences. Wishing everyone a happy upcoming autumn, and with the change of seasons comes a change in what fruits and veggies are prolific throughout the Garden State. And this time of year, apples are in abundance. So welcome to An Apple a Day. Before we jump into talking about apples, I'll share a little bit about Rutgers Cooperative Extension for those of you who aren't familiar. Rutgers Cooperative Extension is a partnership between Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, the Board of County Commissioners of New Jersey, and the USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We are Rutgers' arm to local communities and have offices in all counties throughout New Jersey. We offer cooperative extension services to support the community and to deliver research-based information. We have 3 departments: Agriculture and Natural Resources, 4-H Youth Development, and my department is Family and Community Health Sciences. At FCHS, we provide outreach about nutrition, chronic disease prevention, food safety, and overall wellness. Rutgers Cooperative Extension is an affirmative action, equal opportunity employer. These are the talking points for today's apple adventure. I'll talk a little bit about the history of apples. We'll look at some specific health benefits. We'll look at some classic, maybe some more creative ways that you can use apples in the kitchen. And then we will talk about ways to store and preserve apples. Apples are part of the rose family, and they originate from the Tian Shan mountain region in Kazakhstan. In fact, the name of Kazakhstan's largest city, Almaty, as it is known today, translates as Father of Apples, or where the apples are, depending on who is translating. The apple has been evolving in Central Asia for upwards of 4.5 million years, so it's a very old fruit. Modern-day apples were cultivated originally from wild crab apples that were growing in this region. And apples spread throughout Asia and Europe, going both directions out from the Silk Road, which was a network of thousands of miles of trade routes that connected Europe and Asia from around the 200s BC to the 1500s. Travelers on the Silk Road passed through the apple forests of Central Asia. As humans and animals traveled, seeds, and thus apple trees, spread throughout Asia and Europe. By the 1500s BC, apple seeds had been carried throughout Europe. Ancient Romans planted apple orchards in Britain, and by about the 15 through 1600s, apples made their appearance in the New World, in Mexico and South America. Of course, you may have heard of Johnny Appleseed. John Chapman is Johnny Appleseed's real name, and he ventured westward from his home in Massachusetts in the late 1700s and embarked on a mission to establish apple orchards throughout the American frontier. While he may sit in our historical imaginations as a barefoot scatterer of seeds, Chapman actually deliberately cleared land and planted orchards intentionally. His apple trees, which he did start from seed, produced small, bitter apples, and these would not be good to eat fresh. They are nothing like the apples that we see in the grocery store today, but the apples that he grew were important for making hard cider, and hard cider was a staple beverage on the frontier. And the title for today's talk, An Apple a Day Keeps the Doctor Away. Where does that saying come from? In Michael Pollan's A Botany of Desire, the catchphrase, An Apple a Day Keeps the Doctor Away, is described. And this was actually a marketing slogan that was made by apple growers who were concerned that the temperance movement would affect their sales. So people were growing apples to turn them into hard cider. The temperance movement, people were becoming opposed to the consumption of alcohol, and the growers were worried about what would happen to their crop. So horticulturalists promoted eating apples rather than drinking them in the form of alcoholic cider as a way to secure the sale of their crop. And the catchphrase that we know today started as a way for apple growers to increase their sales outside of the cider industry. It's not based in any scientific fact when it was made at the time. However, we will look at some of the specific health benefits that apples can give us. Despite Apple a Day's historical roots as a sales pitch, there are many health benefits of eating apples. First and foremost, picking up an apple counts towards your daily fruit intake and helps you get the recommended amounts of fruit servings for the day. Apples are what we call a nutrient-dense food, and a nutrient-dense food is a food that has a big nutritional bang for its calorie buck. They nourish us by giving our body what it needs to thrive. Things like vitamins, minerals, fiber, phytonutrients, antioxidants without being high in calories. They help us meet the adequate intake recommendations for nutrients. And they may also offer positive effects on our health. Some other examples of nutrient-dense foods include veggies, other fruits, whole grains, seafood, eggs, beans, peas, unsalted nuts and seeds, fat-free and low-fat dairy, lean meats, and poultry. So there's a long list to choose from. Apples may help with weight management, meaning that they can help keep you from gaining weight, or depending on what your activity level is and what else you're eating throughout the day, might help you lose weight. Choosing apples over processed foods can help reduce your intake of added sugar, fat, and the excess calories that we see in processed foods. Adding apples to your diet may also help you reduce the risk for heart disease and for cancer. So let's look at some of the specific nutrients that are found in apples and how those nutrients support our health. First, the fiber that apples contain support our overall health in several ways. Fiber can support heart health by helping to lower cholesterol. And how do we fare for meeting adequate intake recommendations for fiber as a nation? The recommendation is 38 grams per day for men, 25 grams per day for women. In a study using CDC data about the health and nutrition status of Americans, researchers found that less than 8% of US adults met these adequate intake recommendations. So this is definitely an area that we can work on to improve our health. And this fall, with apples being fresh and in season, we can enjoy them and help get the fiber that we need. Fiber also helps our gut microbiome. The gut microbiome is a term that describes the variety of microbial organisms and their genes that live in our gut. Fiber refers to the parts of plants that the human digestive system cannot break down. And that fiber becomes a major food source for the microbiome. There are many types of fiber across the plant food world. Our whole grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, fruits, veggies, all have different types of fiber. Some of these fibers are called prebiotics. And prebiotics are eaten by the microbes in the gut, and the byproducts or metabolites from that may have a health benefit for us. A fiber can only be labeled as prebiotic if there is a documented health benefit found by research. One of the types of soluble fiber in apples is pectin, and pectin is a type of prebiotic fiber that supports the microbiome. Apples also have a little bit of inulin, which is another type of prebiotic fiber, but not as much as pectin. Other foods like onions and garlic, they're going to give you more of the inulin. So while we're only talking about apples today, one of the best paths to health is having a diverse diet with a variety of different fruits, veggies, whole grains, and legumes. Another nutrient in apples that helps us is vitamin C. One medium 3-inch apple, which this one's a little bit bigger than that, contains over 10% of your vitamin C for the day. And with cold and flu season coming up, opting for apples and other whole foods that are high in vitamin C is preferable over vitamin C supplements so that you get the other nutrients that are in those foods. And we can take a vitamin C supplement, but that's not giving us any pectin, and it's not giving us any other phytonutrients or naturally occurring antioxidants that we see in whole food. Apples have several antioxidants and phytonutrients. I'll highlight quercetin. Quercetin helps increase the activity of glutathione, which is often considered to be the body's master antioxidant. Glutathione's antioxidant activity can prevent genetic mutations, prevent cell membrane damage, and thus help prevent against diseases such as heart disease, liver disease, and diabetes. This is simply a long list of many ways to enjoy apples. I went with savory foods here just to inspire you to think beyond the usual foods that we think of made with apples, like pie, adding it to oatmeal, quick breads, and granola, all of which are also delicious, but we want you to think beyond the box. I threw a chopped apple in a chicken burger mix last night. It's pictured on top of the screen. and they turned out really good. The apple makes the burger really juicy, and it adds another layer of flavor. And you could do this with turkey also. You could throw apples in a pot with braised chicken, add it to any pork dishes, cut in half a pork chop, stuff some apple slices in, and that'll make the meat really juicy. We can throw diced up apples into stuffing mixtures. We can toss it into chicken salad. Apples are also really good diced up and sauteed with cabbage, red cabbage specifically. We can also add apples to winter squash soup if you're making butternut squash soup, if you want to add a little sweetness to it. And instead of a regular plain grilled cheese, some thick cut whole wheat bread, some low fat, maybe some cheddar, and slices of apple on your grilled cheese sandwich. That's a quick and easy lunch to throw together or to have on the side with your winter squash soup on a cold evening. And we can, of course, toss in chopped, diced julienne apple to a variety of salads, slaws. Pictured on the right, we have a broccoli and red cabbage slaw that has some apples with it. So there's a lot of ways to enjoy apples. And since they're coming up into season and they will be in season with us until the end of the year, we have a lot of time and opportunity to include some apples in our day. Some other ways to enjoy apples. The QR code that's on the screen will take you to our FCHS applesauce recipe. It is incredibly simple and only has 2 ingredients, apples and water. Doesn't get much easier than that. There is a video tutorial as well on the website. And I'll send that recipe as well as some others out to everybody after the presentation. Please note that our applesauce recipe is not a canning recipe. If you want to can applesauce, please use an evidence-based recipe from a reliable source. More on that later. One that was specifically designed for canning purposes. We can add applesauce to baked goods, which I'll show more about on the next slide. Apples also make a very portable and convenient snack. They have their own wrapper on them. You can throw them right in your bag as is. And if you're having apples as a snack, for snacking in general, I like to encourage people to add a protein with their snack just to help keep you full longer and help meet your protein needs throughout the day to support your muscle mass. So we see down on the bottom left some apple slices with cottage cheese and almond butter. I find people always either seem to love or hate cottage cheese. So if you're in that second group, apple slices with just regular peanut butter, almond butter, sunflower butter, very good as well. And you can also boost the flavor with a little sprinkle of cinnamon or stir a little bit of vanilla extract in your peanut butter, kind of add more layers of flavor to your snack and make it more exciting. You can substitute a half a cup of applesauce for a half cup of oil or butter in baking recipes. And this table shows you the effect on the nutrition profile of what you're making if you pick applesauce over oil or butter. If you're making a quick bread or a muffin recipe and your loaf yields 8 slices, we see that you can save almost 100 calories and 10 grams of fat for each slice if you use applesauce instead of oil. Applesauce has no saturated fat, so it is a heart-healthy option, and you can use unsweetened applesauce from the store, or you could make your own if you wanted to do this. We also add a little bit of fiber also when we're using applesauce instead of oil or butter. And with apples being popular, apple juice is very popular. The process of, so which is better? Can I just drink the juice and get the same benefits as if I ate an apple? The process of juicing removes the fiber. So the benefits that we see from fiber and prebiotics are lost if we pick up a glass of juice instead of the whole fruit. Many of the antioxidants in apples are found just underneath of the peel. So juicing the pulp is going to remove that. The pectin that is in the skin and pulp helps slow down digestion, and that helps keep us full longer. And it can also help regulate our blood sugar, because we're digesting what we're taking in more slowly. So when we take that away by juicing the apple, we lose that benefit. Juice is also more calorie dense. It's not filling. You can drink it in 10 seconds before your brain has even processed that you took in calories. Juice also spikes blood sugar faster than eating whole fruit. Not to mention that taking the time to slow down and enjoy food is also more satisfying. So pick up the fruit, put down the juice to get as many health benefits from apples as you can. And as I say every time when I talk about food preservation, please respect your time, your effort, your money, and your safety whenever we're preserving food. We want to be following evidence-based, research-based guidelines, and we want to preserve the same quality of food that we would eat fresh. So choose apples that are free of defects like bruises, broken skin, decayed spots. Please seek more information. The QR code is on the next screen. Before we store apples, we want to sort through them and select apples that are free of defects. One bad apple literally will ruin the bunch. If you keep apples in the refrigerator, they can shrivel because the moisture gets drawn out of them. A way to prevent this is by storing them in a perforated plastic bag. And this increases the humidity around the apples and can prevent them from getting shriveled. Under optimal conditions, apples can be stored up to 8 months. Little side tip, don't store apples next to onions. The apples can actually absorb the onion flavor from gases that are produced by the onions. And if you would like to make your own dried apples in a dehydrator, the temperature is going to be set at 140 degrees. Plan on about 6 hours for thin apple slices. It's also recommended to pre-treat apples before drying them to help prevent excess browning. The pre-treatment also helps preserve the flavor and also the vitamins in the fruit. The simplest way to pre-treat apple slices for drying is to soak freshly cut slices for about 10 minutes in a solution of 1 part bottled lemon juice to 1 part water. Research studies have shown that by pre-treating with an acidic solution like lemon juice, we also have the added benefit of enhancing the destruction of potentially harmful bacteria like E. coli, salmonella, and listeria. After about 6 hours, you want to test your slices to see if they're dried out thoroughly. Dried fruits should be leathery and pliable. Once dry, they should not be sticky or tacky. You want to test them after they're done drying. Let them cool off for about a half an hour to an hour before you package them up. If they are still warm, your product can sweat and then you have moisture built up, which can lead to mold. The last step to dehydrating apple slices or most other fruits and vegetables for that matter is conditioning. And conditioning is a process where you shake your container of dried fruit after it has been in its container for about 7 to 10 days. We shake it up, evenly distribute the remaining moisture that's in the fruit, and this helps prevent mold growth down the road. Because when we shake it, if one part has a little bit more water than another part, the drier pieces are going to soak up that moisture. So we want to shake the container daily, separate everything. And if you see condensation developing on the inside of your jar, you can return that fruit to the dehydrator for more drying. And once conditioning is completed, you can package and store the fruit for later use. There are 3 ways that we can freeze apples as a preservation method. I don't talk about syrup pack and sugar pack too much just because we're adding sugar and I generally recommend people avoid added sugar. You can slice and freeze them on a tray. And then once that tray of apple slices is frozen, you can package them up in freezer bags. And the pieces will stay nice and separated and easier to take out of the freezer later down the road. If you want to prevent the apple slices from browning, you could do same strategy for pre-treating in the dehydrator. You could pre-treat them with an acidic solution. And the National Center for Home Food Preservation recommends you could do this with a half a teaspoon of ascorbic acid, fancy name for vitamin C, and 3 tablespoons of water. And then you just sprinkle that over your apple slices. You could also steam blanch apple slices for 1.5 to 2 minutes. And the QR code on the screen will take you to the National Center for Home Food Preservation, where you can find an array of information that's evidence-based. It's science-backed, safe information to help you preserve your own food at home, which is really rewarding and fun. They recommend for some freezing varieties that are good are Golden Delicious apples, Rome Beauty, Stamen, Jonathan, and Granny Smith apples. If you are making applesauce or apple butter, they recommend Golden Delicious, Rome Beauty, Stamen, Jonathan, Gravenstein, and Macintosh apples. Red Delicious apples are best eaten fresh if you like them, and they don't really cook or freeze very well, according to most people's opinions per the National Center for Home Food Preservation. Of course, we can can applesauce, apple butter, apple chutneys. I talked about canning last month when we talked about tomatoes, so I won't go in depth about it here again today. But if anyone is interested in information about canning apples and apple products, just let us know in the chat, and I'm happy to send more information out after the talk. So our key takeaways for today: apples are in season. We hope you enjoy them. And while I cannot promise that an apple a day will keep the doctor away, we have seen today how they are a nutritious part of a healthy diet. We will release the second poll to ask you what you thought about today's talk. And I want to thank everyone for spending your lunch with us. Our next Lunch and Learn, which will be about the Mediterranean diet, is on October 9th at 12:30. And if you have a favorite way that you like to enjoy apples, please share in the chat. And I am going to stop sharing so that I can see everyone. And I'd be happy to take any questions that anybody has. I have never tried an Arkansas black apple. Ooh, late October. Thank you, Cynthia. I'll keep my eye out for them. I don't know if they grow in New Jersey. Does anybody have any questions? Anything they want to add or share? Strawberry Hill in Chesterfield. Oh, apples and peanut butter is really good. All right, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you enjoy your day. Happy Friday Eve, and we'll see you next month.